And it made me think, all these races that are running, because I haven't gone to any one of them, I don't understand what those races are doing to make them safe. Or are they doing the like Florida thing of just like, there's no pandemic.
Okay, from what I've seen, most have changed to the almost more like mini corral styles where like people line up, almost like you're lining up for an attraction. And then you do like a rolling start. So they'll start like, one group, and then like 10 seconds later, the next group will start. And it's like, once you start, I think most do, you can take your mask off.
Right. Because you could in theory run, 10 feet away from anybody.
In theory.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter when the ship starts sailing. And I'd like to welcome back to the show our co-host all the way down in Burbank, California. How you doing this morning, Chris?
Doing pretty good, Steve. How are you doing?
Not too bad. This is my favorite time of year. You know why?
Christmas decoration?
Christmas Day, because Rudolph is out running. He's running to get Santa to town.
Okay. Did you wake up in the middle of the night and jot that down?
I did. I was like, I need an intro. I need something stupid and cheesy because that's kind of how I roll. And
you are the dad joke of all dad jokes.
And it made me wonder, like, what do you think Rudolph's running in? Is he a New Balance guy? Is he Brooks? Is he Hoku? Is he Nike Elite? What do you think?
I feel like Rudolph is 100% running in those Nike Vaporfly, whatever, the ones that are like $400 or $300, because Rudolph leads the whole sleigh.
That's true.
He's got to have the best.
He does. He's got to look good out there too. So I like the way you're thinking. Well, we are going to turn our focus to a little Run Disney today. We haven't talked about it for a while. And of course, when we talk about Run Disney, we have to bring our expert on. Welcome back to the show, Lake from Mouse Gen. How you doing today, Lake?
Oh, shucks. You guys are going to make me blush here.
No. And what do you think, Lake? What does Rudolph run in? What's your take?
I don't know about Rudolph, but those new Hoka Rocket X's are looking real cool right now. That's what I'm leaning towards.
I need to look that up. I actually went to a running store. They fitted me for, is it Hoka or Hoka? Hoka. They fitted me for some Hokas. I ran in them for about a month, and I started getting really bad foot problems, and I was determined that it wasn't the shoes. And then I switched back to my Asics, and it was the shoes. So now I'm like, darn, I liked the way those felt, but they hurt my feet.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes when you switch, like, especially the drop. I don't know what the drop in Asics are, but Hokas are usually about a 4 or 5 millimeter, which is less than most other shoes right now.
Yeah, well, I did feel like I was running on platform heels when I put those Hokas on because they were thick. They were like thick with
They are thick boys.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking that if Rudolph is rocking those things, man, they're going to finish going around the world in less than the evening, and Santa's going to have a little bit more time off. He'll make it over to Hawaii to start his vacation a little bit sooner over in Aulani. So with that shoe development, I think it's going to be good things for Santa.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks.
All right, well, let's turn into a little Run Disney. Hey, Lake, let's kind of give a little bit of background. We haven't talked about any Run Disney events lately. Of course, there really hasn't been any Run Disney events lately, but when did the first Run Disney event go virtual? I can't remember. Was it Princess?
So Princess last year ran. That was, right before the craziness back in February. And then, people weren't so sure about how Star Wars 2020 was going to go. They hadn't announced anything. And then, March, everything stopped. We were on the Dream when they said, no more cruises after this. And it was maybe a couple of days later, they finally said, all right, Star Wars is completely canceled. No virtual option. But then moving forward, people weren't so sure what was going to go on with Wine and Dine. And I think it was about September, I want to say, they announced that was going to go fully virtual. And then since then, Marathon Weekend, Princess Weekend, and now Star Wars 2021 have all announced that they're virtual.
So before I ask any opinions on all of this, let's kind of just go through some basics for people who have not been following the Run Disney. So obviously in normal times, it's pretty hard to sign up for a lot of these races. They sell out pretty quickly. When they went virtual, what did Run Disney allow people to do? People that were already registered, could they get their money back, or how did that work? And then the second follow-up question is, did they open up more slots for people who did want to run it virtually?
So Run Disney did give you the option to either transfer virtually or just refund you the full amount back to your original payment method. For pretty much all of the races, we took the option to just do the full refunds. We did sign up for one virtual event, which we'll get into later. But if you decided to transfer to the virtual option, of course, you paid a lot more to do a live event. So they transferred you to the virtual option, and then depending on which race you were signed up for, you also got a Disney gift card back. I think if you were doing the challenge, it was about $100 you would get back.
So not too bad of a. I mean, at least they did kind of acknowledge the difference in what you're paying for a live event versus doing it virtually.
They normally have, maybe for 5 years now, done a summer virtual series or run option, which is like you do a 5K each month of the summer and they send you a medal. You could choose to do just one or just the others. But for those, they literally just sent you a medal in the mail. No shirts, no swag. But my understanding is for these other virtual events, they are sending out swag, right? They're sending out other things. Do you know about that, Lake?
So this is actually something kind of cool they're doing with the registrations. And I have the Star Wars one up just for reference here. Is they're actually doing, so for the same race, so say you're doing the challenge or the 10K or the half, you can choose different registrations for that depending on essentially the amount of swag you're getting. So for instance, I have the Rival Run Challenge, which would have been doing the 10K and the half marathon, which was what I was signed up for. So they have the Galaxy option, which is 115, and you get your 3 finisher medals, the 10K, half, and the challenge. In addition to that, you get the virtual bib and the finisher certificate, and you get kind of the digital kit with the digital goodie bag and the race tool kit. And then if you go up to the More Galaxy option for 154, you get your finisher medals, and then you just get one shirt, which I would assume is just the challenge shirt. And then if you move up to the Lightspeed option, you get all 3 shirts, all 3 medals, and then all of the digital options that we mentioned before.
Which at this point, now that they're baking in the just base cost or profit that they want from each of these swag items, you would think they would switch back to super nice champion tech shirts and things like that. But from reading online, it seems like some people are not a fan of the Villains Weekend shirts that they have been sending out. And I know, you mentioned, not being a huge fan of the shirts that the races were offering after they switched from Champion to, no brand.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it is still the generic brand. It seems no matter how much we petition for them to bring back the Champion, or even just, any other actual brand name would be nice. Right. They still insist on giving us these scratchy quote-unquote tech shirts.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. When I'm reaching for a run shirt, it's the last one I would grab because it's not as comfy. So I actually did one of these virtual races. Me and a friend of mine, we were supposed to do the Long Beach Half Marathon back in November, October of this year. It was canceled. We were like, well, we're still gonna run it virtually. We've been training all summer to do it. So why don't we buy the Villains Wine and Dine Half Marathon medal and shirt? So we did. I haven't gotten in the mail yet though, so I cannot review the shirt or the medal. But I did recently run a half marathon Wine and Dine, and I ran it on the actual day that it would have happened if it had happened. So I did feel kind of connected to Disney World.
Yeah, it is really cool. There is a lot of groups of, people who are very active in the Run Disney community who have still gone out. Some people have still went to Disney World and even dressed up in their costumes and went and ran the event. We did not. Again, we didn't even sign up for the virtual event except for the Princess 5K, which we can talk about in a bit. So there is still definitely a community around the races and around the virtual options. And of course, the virtual options do allow people who otherwise wouldn't be able to do these events to have the opportunity to experience Run Disney as well.
I do think that for people who aren't local to Disney World or who aren't just paying the fee to sign up for a race, but they're also now having to pay for flights and for hotels and for theme park tickets and all of that. You know, there is some benefit to a virtual. But I also know that for a lot of people, the reason they do Run Disney is the magic every mile vibe. I don't know. My neighborhood doesn't quite have that same magic every mile vibe.
There's no magical character stops by your neighbor's house?
No, my neighbors just stand out with one of those big fake Mickey hands and wave at me.
That's a good question there. Overall, like, you know, in the Run Disney kind of universe, what's your take? I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is. These races are turning virtual for right now. But what do you get as a sense as far as are most people running them still, or is it just really the hardcore fans that are kind of running them? Or are people just picking and choosing like the ones that they might want to do because they have an affinity for it?
I think it's really pick and choose right now. Again, you get some newer people that are able to, you know, participate in these events. Some people who may have been opted in for the challenge may be scaling back to saying, oh, well, maybe I'll just do the 10K because I like that medal the most. Again, for us, we chose the refund option just because that's like, well, between Katie and I, over $600 back. And, you know, it doesn't mean that we dislike the virtual options. It's just not really our style. And you know, most of the community that I'm involved with or I talk to pretty often have seemed to take the refund option for the most part.
Okay, and I know another aspect to this, and you see people, it's so cool to see them. Like, I remember running in the marathon a couple years ago, and somebody in front of me had the perfect Dopey shirts on and whatnot. So people that have been perfect at the different races, how's Run Disney, could you explain what that is, and then how has Run Disney dealt with that for people moving forward?
Perfect essentially means that you have ran said race or said challenge since its conception. So Princess and Marathon Weekend have the longest standing perfect runners. I think there's only like 24 people or something like that who are currently perfect in the marathon. You know, races like Dopey, Wine and Dine, which aren't quite as old, or, well, Wine and Dine, I think, is at 10 years now. Dopey's at 5 years. There's a higher volume of them, and it's basically a way to continue to get runners to come back. Now, Star Wars in 2020 was supposed to be the 5th year. I was currently perfect in that, but sadly, I will have to restart my perfect status for that. They did say that you did not have to participate in any virtual events to maintain your perfect status, though.
So if somebody was perfect in the marathon, one of those 24, if they didn't run it this year, hopefully next year when it does run, and not next year, 2021, 2022, they can maintain that status then?
Correct.
Okay. Well, just looking back at the races, everything's sold out. All of the marathon virtual races for Marathon Weekend and for Princess Weekend are sold out. So they have been able to fill the slots. And as you kind of talked about, Star Wars is the next one up. Chris, any other questions before we turn on to Star Wars?
I'm just wondering if you think that they actually sold out, or if it was more like they needed a set number before they placed their order, probably from China, for the medals. And they were like, okay, these are the number of people who signed up. We're going to produce this number of medals. Because in theory, there's no like upward limit to how many people could run a virtual, right?
Yeah, so you're basically right. They have basically opened these events for windows. I don't think anything has like technically sold out, but they've just been staying open till a certain time. And, you know, that's just a cost saving measure for them. They know exactly what they need to produce then. It's selling merchandise at this point.
Yeah, it means something to the people who run it, but it's also, if you go to a normal marathon weekend and you don't finish, you can still get a medal or no?
You can still get the medal for that specific race, but it does not make you eligible for any additional challenge medals that you would get.
So, like, if you got swept from the marathon, they would drive you to the end, give you your marathon medal, even if you didn't finish it.
Correct.
Okay. So at least on some level, no matter what, you're buying that medal, even if you can't finish. Though I know for a lot of people, they feel like, well, if I didn't finish the race, I wouldn't want the medal. So that makes sense. But I think runners sometimes debate about things like that, because some people do it just for the bling. some people do it for the experience, and some people do it for both. I think I'm one of the people who does it for both. I really like the medals, but also I probably wouldn't want the medal if I didn't finish.
Doesn't really bother me either which way. What people want to do with or without their medals is up to them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I got to be honest, we actually signed up for the Walt Disney World Half Marathon virtual event, and it was just for continuity. We've been for the last 5 years running down there, and so my brother, his husband, and my wife all signed up, just even though they're not having it this year. I think it's just like a continuity event for all of us to do it together. We're going to try and run it on the same day. If that works out, I don't know, but looking forward to getting back there next year. Before we just talk about Star Wars, Lake, you said that you signed up for a virtual event. Which one is it, and why did you guys sign up for it?
Katie and I collectively signed up for one virtual Princess 5K, and that is because it was supposed to be Katie's sister, my sister-in-law's Amy's first run Disney weekend. And of course, we were hoping that this event was going to happen in person. So when they announced that it was going virtual, she decided that she's still going to come down. We're going to go and do the parks and basically make the week of it. And then we're going to go and do our virtual Princess 5K around Hourglass Lake there at Pop Century.
It's a great place to run a 5K.
It is a great place.
What would that be, like 3 times around?
About 3 times. I think it's like just under a mile when you go all the way around.
So in a total different segue, before we talk about Star Wars, what other places around Walt Disney World would you recommend people running? Hourglass Lake, I've heard that before. Any other places, Lake?
The Boardwalk Yacht Club is a pretty easy place to run. You have the whole waterway there. You can run up to Hollywood Studios. And then there's actually another path that you can take and run along the sidewalk of the road. And you can go all the way down to Coronado and the Blizzard Beach Water Park area. The All-Stars also have like a really huge parking lot facility because they're basically 3 resorts all stacked on top of each other. It's not as scenic as the first 2 options, but my favorite place on property to run is actually going to be at Fort Wilderness, the campground, just because there's so much space. It's so spread out there, and then you can get a lot of mileage just going in and out of the campground loops as well. We've actually made dinner reservation or breakfast reservations there before. We'll show up, run, and then go and have breakfast at Trails End.
You know, I was going to bring that up because we stayed at Wilderness Lodge in August, and I tried to go for a run, but they're doing some type of work between Wilderness Lodge and Fort. They were going to put in that other resort, I guess, originally, the DVC resort.
Reflections.
Yeah, Reflections. And so the road was closed. There's like a road that goes back and forth. And I think there's a trail that you can run between Fort Wilderness and Wilderness Lodge. And I was hoping to do that run. I think that would be a great place, too, if you're staying at Wilderness Lodge once that trail or road opens back up so you can get back over there. Well, let's turn our focus to Star Wars. This was the news that came down last week. What was... There's a lot of angles to Star Wars, I guess. And one of the things that I didn't realize, but through some of the tweets and things that I've read on Facebook, and then also listening to your video that you and Katie made, like, was that Star Wars was one of the toughest races for them to sell out.
So this was not a surprising update that they went virtual, but this update also had a bunch of like hidden updates that they just kind of squeezed in there. And we're like, by the way, this thing's happening. We're not going to talk about it, though. So, of course, the race went virtual. It's sad. Again, we chose to refund it. But then they were also like, oh, by the way, this is going to be the last Star Wars that we are doing. And there was a lot of speculation, even between us, about whether that meant they were going to retheme it to another Star Wars or whatnot. Getting to your point, though, this race in the 4 years that we ran it has never sold out. I think the first year it had like sold out for a month or 2, and then they were like, oh, just kidding, we're going to open up more spots. And any year after that, it's never sold out after opening.
I feel like there's several reasons that could be. One, Star Wars has a loyal fan base, but not everyone is a Star Wars fan. And certainly probably there are not as many Star Wars fans as there are princess fans or just like general Disney character fans. Though I'm always so sad that Donald Duck is the mascot for the half marathon. He's my least favorite of the, what do we call them? The Fab Five, the original 6, whatever. But anyway, I digress. Donald, you're fine. But with Star Wars, it's like not everyone is a fan of Star Wars. But I also think another reason is I would be a little nervous to run in Florida that late in the year. Like, I'm already stressed about the humidity of Florida, and the idea of running in humidity when you don't train in that same type of humidity makes me a little bit anxious. Because, like, January, it's actually a great time to run because even if it's really cold, I personally prefer running when it's like 40 degrees outside. I feel like I run faster, I run more efficiently. But I can't imagine running in Florida even if it was like 60 degrees or 70 degrees outside, because I just like overheat so much. So that makes me nervous about that race in general. And I wonder, like, do you think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't sell out, or do you think there's other reasons?
So, like Steve said, we did post a video on this. We speculated different reasons. That was a big reason. Time of year, it's almost always going to be really hot down here. I think that race is almost always red or black flag, which is basically just like the safety levels that they give to the races. I think there's green, yellow, red, and then black is like dangerous.
Black's like, maybe you should reconsider.
Yeah, and this is one of those races where they're always like, okay, now for I think it's like every 5 degrees above 60, you're supposed to drop your pace by 30 seconds a mile. And they're like, all right, it's going to be 80 degrees, so everyone needs to run a 10-minute mile.
So that's a big deal to me. Like that, the temperature vibe does stress me out. Though I'm sure not everyone is thinking about that. I've noticed though in California, my best runs always happen right now. Like for the next 3 months, I'll have really good running when it's like wake up in the morning, it's 45 degrees. You can run. By the time you're done with your run, it's in the 50s. But man, I could not run in Florida above like probably 70 degrees without needing to take constant breaks. So that seems like a valid reason why it might not sell out as often.
Yeah, not only that, as we said, Star Wars is very popular. But you have to be a Star Wars fan and also have to be a running fan to do this. Not making any insinuations by any means, but that just niches it down because there's a lot more of, Disney and running fans than specifically Star Wars and running fans, to say the least.
Yeah, that's super valid. Also, I have yet to run a Disney race in a costume. And I feel like I am the type of person who, if I did run a Disney race in a costume, that costume would be limited to like a tech shirt that had a print on it that was Disney themed. I would not be the one wearing like a headdress or wearing like specialized character shoes or things like that. So with Star Wars, I've literally seen people running like dressed as like Ahsoka Tano, where I'm like, that headdress is probably causing all of your heat to trap inside of your head, and like not a good look if you're sensitive to heat exhaustion or things like that. So Star Wars costumes are no joke.
Like, do you get a sense that like Star Wars and Princess, more people dress up versus the only one that I've done so far is Marathon Weekend, and there are some people who dress up, but really it's not quite as themed as those two weekends were or are.
Yeah, I think so, just because those themes rotate. So you get it'll change princesses every year for your races. Whereas with Marathon, you're pretty much guaranteed that, you're going to get Mickey, Minnie as the full marathon. And then the rest of the Fab Five kind of rotate and they throw Oswald in there when they want to. I mean, people still, by all means, dress up for all of these events. But I definitely think Princess is definitely the big one for dressing up, at least in my experience.
I forget, like, do you dress up?
Never.
He's too far in front. It'd slow him down.
But would you wear like a tech shirt that just like happened to look like Gaston or something?
Yeah, I would. It would just have to be like really comfortable. Like it would have to be a nice material. I've actually looked into like what it would cost to like get like nice, what do they call it? Like ink sublimation, where they actually like print it on the shirt rather than just like a vinyl over it. Because sometimes, like, even if the Disney tech shirts, if that vinyl is, like, over your sensitive areas, it's not that comfortable.
Yeah, then you start chafing.
Exactly.
It's a good point. I feel like the longer the distance, the more having, like, a tech shirt matters. Because having a chafing chest is, like, a quick way to ruin a half marathon for me. Like, if like, the last 6 miles you're like trying to pull your shirt away from your chest just to keep everything dry, that's no fun. So like, that's super valid. I think in general, I'm nervous about costumes because I worry that it'll throw me off my game. But I also have much respect for all the people who do wear costumes. It sort of makes it fun. It's sort of like one of the fun things about a Disney race is looking around and seeing all the really creative things that people have done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would never tell someone, oh, never wear a costume, because it is fun. It adds a certain flavor that you especially don't see in, more regular races. Like, it's a unique part of that community that adds to the racing aspect. But it's just not personally my cup of tea.
And hey, if you forgot your costume or you didn't plan one, just go to the expo. They'll sell you an $80 shirt that looks like Aurora's gown.
So as an outsider, looking in at this race too, it kind of disappointed me. And not disappointed is not the right word, but it seemed like it was kind of a letdown once they stopped having the Run Disney races at Disneyland, where you could do the challenge on either side of the continent, which I think that added something to it. And it became, run your half virtually at home and then come to Walt Disney World, run the other half and collect your either Kessel Run Challenge medal and I'm not sure if I'm saying the medals correct. Like, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But I don't know, it seemed like it took, for me, just as an outsider looking at it, it seemed like it took a little wind out of the sails out of this race as well.
Yeah, I think it definitely did take away some of the flair, especially the theming was so cool those first 2 years where you had light side on one side of the country and then dark side down here in Walt Disney World. And then light side went away. So they're like, okay, we're going to merge both sides and make it Rivals Run. And that was another issue that I said with the theming is they could have just made it like Star Wars race weekend and kept it like real general. And they could have done a lot more with it. I think Rivals would have ran stale after the next maybe 2 or 3 years.
So with that note, and this is baseless speculation, what would you guys like to see? And who wants to start?
I'll start because I'm more of the novice. Please don't do Marvel. Disney, if you're listening. They did that in LA or at Anaheim. It's fine. I would prefer Pixar. It's a wealth of IPs similar to the princesses. They're super popular IPs. Also, there's a type of Pixar movie for everybody. So I think it would be a really popular theme. I think that it would give them a lot to run through. Also, if they did Pixar and I signed up for the first one ever, then I could do what Lake's doing and try to get perfect in a race, because I joined the Run Disney community so late that there was no way for me to ever get perfect in a race. So now that they're starting an all new theme, and if it's a theme I like, and if Florida decides not to be 80 degrees whenever they run it, I feel like I could do it. So that's my vote.
How about you, Lake?
So I think Chris hit it on the head. I do have a couple different theories and options. Chris mentioned them both, but I think the biggest contender here is Pixar. We saw them start to experiment with the theme over in Disneyland before the Disneyland races went away, and they were very beloved. People were all about it. I mean, it's just all of these IPs that are really untapped for the Run Disney community right now. I think it's their biggest option. Again, Marvel could be a contender. We've got all these kind of weird rules about what characters we can and can't use over here. So less likely, but 2020 has been weird enough. So you never know what could happen. Could also see them going the route of maybe a generic, into the movies, live action theming, since they've acquired all these new properties. This is probably my least likely option. But it's something that could still, potentially bring Star Wars back into the mix, and then maybe a little bit of Marvel. You could see things like Pirates of the Caribbean. That could be a popular theme. But Pixar's where my money's going.
And so I asked both of you, and I really don't have a dog in the race as far as what I really thought out. I think I like your Pixar idea, too, for for all the reasons that you guys stated. I know some people speculated they're going to follow on with The Mandalorian. I don't really see that happening. Do you?
I mean, it's so popular. And at this point, maybe they didn't have a lot of Baby Yoda merchandise out of the gate, but now you can't walk 2 feet in any direction without running into a Baby Yoda. So I feel like they could be this is such a popular IP that we've got to do it. So maybe they would go that route, but I don't know. I feel like people would be less excited about it than a Pixar announcement. And also, let's just do the math here. The Run Disney races all the way through Star Wars weekend have turned virtual, which means that the next possible in-person race is Wine and Dine 2021. right? Which is essentially a year from now. Like, Wine and Dine would have happened in November, so that's a long time from now. And let's just say that the vaccines have been widely distributed and we get the pandemic under control and it's totally safe to do it again. That's still a year from now that we're doing these in-person things. So I think there's going to be a huge demand for whatever races they announce in place of the Star Wars. Like, I think if they announce Pixar, it will sell out. If for no other reason, then everyone in the Run Disney community has been forced to take a year off, or what by the end of this might be more like 2 years off. I think that whatever they announce is going to sell out. And I'd probably be one of those people in line for it, honestly.
Well, let's just run with that. That was going to be one of the last topics we kind of covered was what's next, and that is, or next to register is Disney's Wine and Dine. Lake, do you have any feeling as to when that will open up for people? Because I know this one, I think, is always popular. It sells out pretty quickly. And if it's the possibility it's the actual first one run again since the pandemic, it's really going to be popular. When should people start watching either their emails or the Run Disney site? Like,
this was another one of the announcements that they kind of snuck in. It's actually like the last paragraph in the Star Wars update. But essentially they said, you know, we're looking at the aspects for the safety of this, that, and you. But they basically said we have no updates regarding whether or not we're going to open registration for any more events. Typically, Wine and Dine registration opens around the second week in March if they're planning an in-person event. I don't foresee us having a registration at that time. Now, does that mean I think Wine and Dine will be canceled? I'm kind of leaning towards it. I think they'd rather just play it safe for 2021 and then double down on Marathon Weekend in 2022. But I could very much be wrong. But I think for now, it would just be easier for them to focus and make that a virtual race and then look towards what they can do to make Marathon Weekend the safest and the most fun for us.
I agree with Lake. I think it would be surprising to me that everything would be back to normal and ready for Wine and Dine. I also could see there being just some synergy and saying we're taking 2021 off, right? And then restarting everything with the Marathon Weekend in 2022. Remind me when the technical 50th anniversary is. Is it in 2021?
Yeah, it'll be this October.
And if they do what they do for Disneyland, it'll last for like 4 years. So they will have like a super long 50th anniversary celebration. But I could also see them being like, it's the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World, and we're plussing up everything across the parks and the best medals for this year and whatever. Some people say that Disney makes nicer medals on anniversary years, like the 20th anniversary of the marathon year. People seem to love the medals that year. They maybe do a little extra stuff with them. I could see them doing a tie-in with the 50th anniversary somehow for that January Marathon Weekend and making it like really wowie. Those were my like additional thoughts on that one.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I think they will definitely double down on the Marathon Weekend anniversary year synergy. And then also in 2022, which is what we are speculating will be the next Wine and Dine if this one is canceled, will also coincide with Epcot's 40th anniversary. So then that first Wine and Dine could also be like a double down anniversary race, which would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be. And my bet is they stick with the villains theming for Wine and Dine. Just because it was a popular theme this year. People love the villains. And while the whole Wine and Dine concept sounds cool to me, just the idea of like, what were the medals before? I feel like I saw Mickey Mouse like with a spinning pie, or like it's like the Fab Five with various food items. Or maybe I don't know enough to speak on this, but like, what have the past medals been for Wine and Dine?
So they are usually basically themed around food and wine. A lot of times you get kind of a Epcot, like typically the half marathon theme will have the Epcot ball represented in it. And then you're right, some sort of character and food element. The Mickey, it's a patriotic Mickey with a spinning pie is one of my favorite medals like ever.
I think I do know that about you. I feel like the first time we met, you said that your favorite medal is the Mickey with the apples, and then you spin it and it turns into pie, right?
Yeah, we have a video that I think is like our top 5 medals on our channel, and I'm pretty sure that's like 2 or 3 on my list there.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. But now with the villains, adding that theming, I think doubles down on the popularity of Wine and Dine. Also, what's the weather like in November? Is it cool enough to run, or is it sometimes hot?
Sporadic, more likely hot than not.
If you do go run Disney in November, you risk having a red or black flag too?
Yeah, for the most part. Star Wars or ex-Star Wars and Wine and Dine are definitely the hotter of the 4 weekends.
I think you guys are right, too. I'm just going to go with the speculation. I think we're seeing it with Disney Cruise Line as well, as far as they are going to wait until it's the perfect time to open back up. And as you guys talked about, kicking it off the 50th celebration with Marathon Weekend, I would take that bet as far as Wine and Dine going virtual this year as well, if they have it, which I'm sure that they will at least do that. So I guess as we kind of finish up today, Lake, what else are people talking about in the Run Disney community that we haven't talked about today? Any other chatter out there on the web, the interweb, the Disney Twitter sphere and all that?
I think just a lot of disappointment right now. I had a buddy who, the day they canceled the race, he messaged me that morning, said, "Hey, I booked my flights for Star Wars. You think it's going to happen?" And I had to message him back an hour later and say, "I got bad news for you." So I think just disappointed. I think especially me, like missing meeting up with people, seeing friends in the corrals. You know, I would have seen both of you guys. No, not you, Steve, during Marathon Weekend, right?
No, we were hoping to make it for Star Wars, but now that's not going to happen.
All right, B. But yeah, just like seeing everyone, like it's crazy that, you know, over a year ago, we were all sitting down and having lunch at Jock Lindsay's. I had just ran my first marathon. That feels like it was like 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that was what inspired me to sign up for a marathon. I haven't even fully mourned the fact that my first marathon would have been happening in less than a month, and now it's not. And I refuse. I categorically refuse to run a virtual marathon. I can run a virtual half, but when I finish a 13-mile run, I feel like I am going to die. So the idea of doing that again, running 26 miles, scares me so much, and I literally feel like I couldn't do it without the support of my Run Disney friends and the people who would be running it with me. In fact, even this last time when Seth and I ran the half, Lake and Katie were texting us and being like, "We see where you are," and like, "This is cool," and like, you know, keep giving us energy. And same with Steve and Wake. And I feel like without all that energy, I just don't think I could even muster the emotional energy, let alone the physical energy, to run a full marathon. So I'm committing to not running a full marathon until I can do it in person at Disney. Hopefully 2022.
Should be a good year.
Well, I think you guys hit the nail on the head, and why all of us really enjoy. I mean, we're all runners. We enjoy the feeling after running, but it really is the community that surrounds it. And Chris and I are kind of latecomers. I know you and Katie have been around it for a long time now, Lake, and have built a lot of friends through it. So if anybody out there is listening to this and you haven't experienced it yet, you know, if you want to do the virtual ones, go for it. It's definitely a challenge to do, but we look forward to hopefully, you know, getting back to hopefully 2022 where the races will all be going and we can all go meet back down there again. So as we finish up, Lake, why don't you remind everybody where they can connect with you and Katie over at MouseGen and how they can get a hold of you and watch some of your amazing videos. And if you haven't checked them out yet, I really encourage you to go over to YouTube and check out their channel, subscribe to it, because you guys just have a lot of fun content, and I love watching each and every one of them as you put them up.
Yeah, so like Steve said, our channel is MouseGen on YouTube. We also have an Instagram, which is mouse.gen, and we're also MouseGen on Facebook. But really, the YouTube is where we're most active on. If you want to learn more about these race weekends, we have tons of vlogs, even some video like us running the races actively. Then we also have reviews of different races and comparisons of the different race weekends. So definitely go and check that out if you're interested in learning more about Run Disney, or even want to see, you know, what the parks look like currently. I've been back a couple times now and I've shot some different vlogs inside the parks and have been having a good time doing that.
And if you want a little touch of Disney Cruise Line as well, he's got some great videos from Disney Cruise Line as well, too. I've gone back and watched those several times during the pandemic just to kind of, remind ourselves, or Wake and I've done it just to kind of remind ourselves how much we enjoy cruising out there. So once again, Lake, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being a huge supporter of our show. Thanks for being our Run Disney expert today and always. So wish you the best as you get out there training for your next event, and hopefully we'll see you down in the park sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Lake for coming on and taking time out of his busy schedule to talk a little Run Disney with Chris and I. It was always good to connect with him, and I really want to encourage each and every one of you to go over and check out his channel over at YouTube, MouseGen. He and Katie just do an amazing job with all the different vlogs that they create around the Run Disney and Disney Cruise Line. And he's been back in the parks lately as well, too, so a lot of fun views of what's going on in the parks. And if you're interested in that Star Wars rival run or any of the Star Wars races, you can go to rundisney.com right now, and it is actually open to sign up for those virtual Star Wars races. Get in there and do that before it goes away, and we'll see what comes next. Well, if you're enjoying our show, we sure would appreciate it if you go over to iTunes and leave us a review. That helps us get our show known a little bit better in the Disney Cruise Line, and just the travel community in general. And if you know somebody else who would enjoy it, we sure would appreciate it if you'd share it with them as well. If you would like to come on our show and talk a little Run Disney Cruise Line, which is the main focus of our show, of course, being the DCL podcast, or Adventures by Disney, or if you have had just a different vacation over 2020 here as it's coming to an end and think that is something that people would be interested in hearing about, reach out to me, Steve, at thedclpodcast.com, and we'll get you set up to record with us. Well, between now and our next show, if you and your family are heading out on some kind of a staycation, vacation, maybe you're heading out somewhere for the holidays, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you and your families just to be well out there, take care of each other, enjoy the holidays, and of course, we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.